I think a lot of companies are looking at AI the wrong way right now, right? Especially in go-to-market. I've seen like AI transformation teams like come in, they have no idea what problems their sales team is actually facing. They have just been appointed to go find an AI tool that makes their team more efficient, right? And I asked them, what do you mean by efficient? And no one knows, right? They just say, I just want to make my team more efficient. We want to increase productivity. What does that mean?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the SaaS Sales Performance Podcast, your go-to resource for exploring the technologies and strategies that are helping go-to-market teams thrive in today's world. Today's guest is a true innovator in the sales training and coaching space. Please welcome me in joining Sai, who is CEO and co-founder of Hyperbound. So, huge welcome onto the show and really looking forward to our chat today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Matt. Super excited to be on. This is a long time coming. So yeah, looking forward to speaking about all things sales, all things enablement today.
And so, I'll sort of preface today's discussion by saying we have a lot of go-to-market leaders, chief revenue officers on the show. I don't often get to, chew the fat with a fellow founder. So today's a real treat for me as well. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. As we kick things off here, Sai, I'd love to learn a little bit about your founder journey because, I'm looking at your background, engineer by trade. You spent some time at Salesforce, which obviously gives you a good schooling in GTM tech. But how did you and your co-founder, two YC-backed engineers, end up building such an exciting company in the space in Hyperbound?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, man. It's been a crazy journey. So to give you a little bit of perspective, right, it's been around, 20 months since we started Hyperbound now. So still relatively young company. The technology itself wasn't even possible right when we started, to be honest. It was just on the cusp of starting to get to the state where it's at today. I guess a little bit of background on us, right? My co-founder and I were both conversational AI engineers. Spent the last decade basically trying to get these AI models to be as realistic and human-like as possible. Everyone talks about GPT like it's this brand new thing that just came out of thin air and that works for decades. And my co-founder was also a big part of that movement in the last 10 years or so. The story is interesting because when we first started, this was May 2023. My co-founder and I, we knew we wanted to do a startup together. We had nearly 17, 18 different ideas when we started the company. And Hyperbound as it is today wasn't any of those ideas. It's actually idea number 22 or 23. So we applied to Y Combinator at the time, got in, and we spent nearly 6 months reaching out to thousands and thousands of people. So cold LinkedIn messages, cold emails. We were basically SDRs for 6 months straight, right? Just hand personalizing emails, hand personalizing cold messages. We sent 25,000 LinkedIn messages, 10,000 cold emails. And at the end of the day, we managed to land 2,000 user interviews. And each of these may be like 15, 30 minutes long. We would ask them to walk us through their day, right? And talk about some of their problems. And over again, we ran into a variety of different problems, everything from, like we can't trust our SDRs to write emails. And we've heard that many times, all the way to, our reps are afraid of cold calling. But still, if for some reason, for the longest time, we didn't take those as seriously as we should have. And before these calls, we would be practicing on this AI that we had built on the side. It was this Roleplay bot. And we were at a conference in New York a couple months later. We were at a roundtable with a bunch of CROs. One of the CROs turned to my co-founder and he was like, so let me get this straight. You guys are engineers. You are at 250K in ARR selling this product. And it's only been about 3 months. Like, how did you guys learn to sell so quickly? And keep in mind, we were selling a completely different product at the time, right? After about 17, 18 different pivots, we landed on this email automation idea. It was basically like an AI SDR at the time. And they were shocked that we were selling this product. We had 10 customers, 250K in ARR. They're like, it takes my reps 3 months to make their first sale. And here you guys are selling this thing. And so we were like, oh, well, we practiced with this AI. It's not a big deal. And they're like, no, that is a big deal. Can I see it? And we booked a couple coffee chats with the CROs, showed them what we had built, and they were just mind blown, Matt. Right? Like, we're builders. We've been building for nearly a decade, my co-founder and I, and nothing had ever blown someone's mind like Hyperbound did, right? Like this AI role play did. And that's what kind of led to the start of Hyperbound as it is today and made a hard pivot into this product and it just took off.
It's a great story. It's a great story. So originally you go to market with an AI SDR. You get quickly, a decent clip of traction. And actually it's like side conversation from a dinner about your side project AI bot you've been practicing with that actually you go, that's the idea. AI SDRs, obviously it's been well publicized. Many companies have gone on to raise significant rounds and there's quite a lot of excitement around that space as well. Talk me through your decision making between parking something you already had some traction with to then go and explore the other idea.
Yeah, I mean, it came down to kind of thinking about where the future of sales was going to go, Matt, right? So obviously, emails, it was a problem for sure, right? We heard it over and over again. We were seeing massive companies who had massive SDR teams and could not trust their team to write emails, right? They would trust a two-person startup to write all their emails over their own human SDRs. We knew it was a problem, but the question that we kept on asking was, well, what about when these SDRs jump on the phones? What about then, right? You can't have an AI do that. Right? First, that's illegal, and plus the technology is not even there yet. The answer was always, well, yeah, we have no choice. We just got to trust them, right? And so we were like, that's an even bigger problem to solve. That's kind of how we identified that, there's this other problem that was being completely unsolved. There were a lot of AI SDRs that were still up and coming at the time, but we felt like email as a channel is going to die in the near future. We think in the next 5 years, sales is going to be more like what it looked like 10, 15 years ago. More face-to-face communication. It's going to be relationship based, and people won't be able to just hide behind their email like they are today.
I definitely agree with quite a lot of that. And I recently published some thought leadership around, it feels like with the way sales is headed, that when every organization's sales process is powered by AI, your human talent is your last differentiator.
100%. And, a lot of people treat sales as like machine, like they just think, oh, okay, if it doesn't work for a couple months, let's go replace and get a new one. But there's so much time and money lost in that process, so much dead money that's left on the table, especially with the training and the recruiting and the hiring and the onboarding. It doesn't make sense. And so we really believe that there is an opportunity to upskill reps, and that's going to be the way to stand out in the future and build a moat around your.
Yeah, totally agree with that. The all-in costs of that 30 to 40% annual attrition rate in those go-to-market teams. It's kind of crazy that the model has been the way it is for so long, right? With so many underperforming salespeople being carried by the very few.
Absolutely. Yeah, we see that all the time. In fact, most of our customers, we know they need something like Hyperbound as soon as we hear the attrition rates. And a lot of companies too, what we found, Matt, is they just accept the fact. They're like, well, inevitably we're going to lose 40% of our workforce within the first 3 months. Nobody ever questions like why? Why do we have that drop off at the 3-month mark? If you actually survey those reps, there's actually research done on this as well. More often than not, they'll say it's because they didn't feel supported, right? They didn't get the right type of enablement. And when I say that, it's not just like throwing videos and PowerPoints at your reps, but actually giving them an environment where they can actually practice their skills, where they're actually role playing with their peers in a safe environment, right? That's something that's really missing. That used to be there a long time ago, but modern sales, it's become a volume game. It's like, okay, let's just throw a bunch of people at this, make them send 1 million emails, and we're fine. But that's not working anymore, and companies are starting to realize that.
Yeah, totally. And looking forward to unpacking that in a bit more detail in today's conversation. It's to round out founder story. I love hearing founder stories. I think every founder has a unique journey that they've been on. You guys have had an incredibly impressive one to turn it around, and just the fact that you started off building something else and then realized that the side project was the main thing. And since then, just to round that out, so you guys have had crazy traction this year. I see recently on LinkedIn you did 1 million ARR a month. Talk us through,
Absolutely.
What's 2025 been like,
It's crazy, man. I mean, honestly, we launched this January 22nd of 2024. And I remember when we launched, within the first 2 weeks, it just went completely viral. Right? LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, right? Word of mouth. My co-founder and I, like our calendars were booked for the next like 3 to 4 months easily. I remember there was a night when my co-founder and I so we had in our Slack, there's a channel where we would get a notification every time someone role plays with one of our bots because we put a bunch of our role play bots on our website for free. They're still available there, and people would just come in and try it. And we had this notification on Slack. And in the middle of the night, one day, I remember my phone just kept on buzzing and buzzing and buzzing, and I wake up and I'm like, what's going on? And it's because some influencers had posted about us on TikTok and LinkedIn as well. And because of that, our servers had gone down and we were getting more volume than we could even handle. So I called my co-founder in the middle of the night at 4 a.m. and told him, like, hey, we need to get these servers back up. I don't know what's happening. Someone posted about us. And that was kind of the start of the whole flywheel. And in fact, over the last 20 months, we've been fully inbound, Matt. Haven't done any outbound. Not proud to say that now because we got to start building an outbound motion, but it is a fortunate spot to be in, and it speaks to the problem that we're solving and how big of a pain point this product is solving for people.
It's a founder's dream, right? To be 100% inbound for the first 2 years. That's a beautiful thing. And quick question on that, did you get into YC with the original idea, or had you already pivoted by that point?
Not at all. Not at all. That, like I said, this was like idea 22, 23. We actually applied to YC with a completely different idea. And there's a question in the YC app that actually asks, hey, what other ideas do you have? And we put our 17 other ideas in there. And when we asked our YC partners why we got in, they said, we didn't care about any of the ideas. We just believed in you guys because it seems like you have a lot of conviction and you have all these ideas, and we just knew you'd figure it out. Yeah,
Love it.
What more can you expect from an investor, right? You want people that believe in you.
So you and I are recording this in summer 2025. I would say it feels like a kind of peak hype and excitement around AI, particularly in GTM. Every conversation I'm having with a CRO is about, Matt, how do I implement AI into my go-to-market? What's working for customers? How do we make the most of it? What are you seeing as use cases? Because I can share some that I'm seeing in the market work well, but you spoke about obviously the AI SDR is like one thing that seems like there's been a lot of deployment and investment there, questionable kind of ROI initially, maybe some learnings and maturing of the technology that needs to happen. What are you seeing as like some of the main AI use cases unfolding within go-to-market and enablement?
Yeah, we're seeing a wide variety of different ways to use AI, right? I'm seeing applications that basically do workflow automation. Right, I'm doing signal orchestration. For example, like you look at Common Room or Unify, right? They're basically pulling from all these different sources, trying to aggregate those signals and trying to basically give you the best possible intent signals as possible using AI. There's so much data. The nice part about AI, the promise of AI, Matt, I always say is it can ingest more data than any human ever could. Right. That's the beauty of it, is there's no limit of what you can put into it, right? You can upload hundreds of sales calls and have it analyze that, right? You can have a look at, thousands of signals and figure out, which signals are actually more important or which signals are real or which signals are not. And so I'm seeing a lot of companies do that. I've also seen account research being a huge use case for it as well. Right. Every time you jump into a call, like I can't even imagine being a sales rep today and not using ChatGPT to research your account before a call. It makes so much sense. And then of course, you see use cases like ours, where people are using AI to upskill their workforce. Coaching is a huge industry in sales, right? But it's all manual. It's all human led, human consultants coming in, training reps. And oftentimes, 90% of what reps learn within the first month gets lost. It's forgotten, right, within the first month. And so it's like, how do you actually retain that information and make sure that rep is being supported throughout the lifetime of their time at the company? And that's where AI can really be helpful. We see ourselves as we're building like the AI coach that helps every rep one-on-one.
It's really exciting. And before zoning into that piece specifically, Sai, I obviously used the AI SDR example, and I know there's been a lot of kind of bashing there, but when you think about those AI use cases, you just shared 3 or 4 really good ones there. What are some things you think are important for go-to-market leaders to think about when they're trying to de-risk AI experiments or initiatives that they're kicking off? What are some important things to consider when implementing AI into your go-to-market?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I have a lot of opinions on this because I've seen all kinds of buying cycles, having sold Hyperbound over the last 2 years. I would say, man, the biggest thing is I think a lot of companies are looking at AI the wrong way right now, right? Especially in go-to-market. I've seen like AI transformation teams, right, come in. They have no idea what problems their sales team is actually facing, right? They have just been appointed to go find an AI tool that makes their team more efficient, right? And I asked them, what do you mean by efficient? And no one knows, right? They just say, I just want to make my team more efficient. We want to increase productivity. What does that mean? Right. And so the number one thing that I tell leaders that are looking at AI, and I tell this to folks who are looking at Hyperbound as well, right? Sometimes I'll have people come in and they'll say, oh, like Hyperbound's not the only thing we're looking at. We're looking at X, 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 and they'll like, name a million things that they're looking at. And the first thing I ask them is, I don't care what you're looking at. What problems are you trying to solve? Right? What is the problem right now? Are your reps not hitting quota? Right? Is it that you have a big product launch and you're worried that your reps are not ready for it? Right? Is it that you're hiring a brand new cohort of reps this year and you're worried that they might not be ready, for your big number next year? Right? What is the problem that you're running into? And you can kind of backtrack from there and actually find the right product for the job. Right? I think there's two, and sometimes you might find that AI is not actually what you need even. Right? It might be something completely different, and that's okay. Right? I think there's this fear that, oh, if I don't put AI into the product, into my workflow, I'm falling behind. But hey, maybe you're doing fine on every front, and AI is not the solution to all your problems. So all I'm trying to say is figure out what your problems are, and then go from there. I think people are too, they're always YC always calls it solution in search of a problem, right? I think people should first identify the problem and then try to figure out the solution. That sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people don't follow.
It's great, sort of sage advice, and there definitely feels like we're still in that phase of shiny new toy. Let's throw a bunch of money at the investment, and then you got a solution looking for a problem within your own organization.
Yeah. And we've sold to orgs like that in the early days of Hyperbound, especially, right? We had a lot of people come in just because we were the shiny new tool in the market, and they make a haphazard decision to buy it, and we didn't do good discovery, and lo and behold, they churn, 8 months later, right? And you realize that they just bought it because it was a shiny new thing, and there was no problem that they were actually trying to solve.
So that's interesting insight. You're actually thinking carefully about the stakeholders on the client side that you're going to need to partner with to drive change management. And because I'm right in thinking that you guys are looking at targeting the enterprise, as with all of technology investments, AI or not, it requires substantial change management.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the reason why we chose enterprise too, Matt, is because that's where change management is difficult. If I'm an enterprise, I have constant attrition, constantly hiring and backfilling, constantly launching new products and feature updates. And so there's this constant need for change management. And that's where Hyperbound allows you to accelerate your change management initiatives. So you don't have to throw a ton of manpower at it. You can just deploy our AI and it takes care of enabling every rep at scale.
I guess it kind of leads me on to my next question, which is around, let's talk about salespeople for a minute here, right? As someone who's built teams of salespeople, led sellers, speaking as a salesperson myself, we tend to be very kind of ADHD tendencies, super short attention spans. And I'll put it bluntly, like pretty shit users of technology. Is that a problem that we can even solve? But like, how are you thinking about that? The inherent challenges of building technology for salespeople.
Yeah, the thing that I've noticed is I found that salespeople are actually very curious, right? They're always looking for new technology because they're always trying to look for an advantage, right? No one wants to do what everyone else is doing. And so we actually haven't had a problem getting people to try our product. Like people are more than happy to try it out, give it a shot, see if it helps them and gives them an advantage. I think the part that is much trickier is measuring ROI, right? Because there's a lot of things you could be doing to improve your sales team. Pipeline's always the first place everyone looks. They're like, oh, maybe if we just send more emails, or maybe if we just make more dials, or maybe if we can improve our connect to conversation rate, like get a parallel dialer, that will solve all our problems, right? But I think people don't think deeply enough about what happens after that opportunity is created, and things start to fall apart after that. And the answer is always pipeline, pipeline, pipeline. So what I found is the best orgs that I've worked with, they are implementing technology that goes beyond just the pipeline problem right now. And they're thinking deeply about, okay, why are deals actually not converting? It has to do a lot with how reps are coming to these calls and preparing for these calls. Best reps are open to using this technology, man. They're willing to go in and learn how to use it.
It tends to often be the case, right? Anything that's sort of personal development or training related, it's those A players that have that growth mindset, that hunger to improve. I've often found in my experience, it tends to be the kind of B, C, and D players that you have to sort of really either it's carrot or stick. Which one's it going to be?
Right, right. Absolutely. We
Not,
see that all the time.
and I think the other thing that can also be challenging with salespeople, right, is they don't always want to engage in the things that are going to help them. And an example of that, obviously, relevant to the problem you're solving is role play. I don't know many salespeople that love role play. It's kind of like that. It's like going to the gym, right? It's like people have that kind of dread of like, oh no, I've got to do a role play. Oh, I've got to go to the gym. Once you get in there and you've done the session, then you're pumped and you're like, wow, this is great. This is going to help me. And I have high conviction on role play. It's such a powerful practice to improve capabilities, but drag the teams in with gritted teeth sometimes.
Right. And what we tell our customers all the time too, Matt, is if someone's not willing to participate and get better, then is that the type of person you even want on your team? Because everyone wants to build a culture where people have that growth mindset. They want to get better. So it's like if you're being given the opportunity, like if your company is paying for your gym membership and you're not going, then there's something wrong inherently, right? Especially if you're not performing. If you're doing great and you're not going to the gym, okay, maybe we can cut you some slack. But if you're not doing either, then there's something wrong. And it's better that the company knows that earlier than much later. And this happens all the time where nobody knows for like 9, 10 months, and then you've already spent all this time. It's too late.
Yeah, 100%. And it's that classic conundrum of trying to convince salespeople when you're rolling out new initiatives or new technologies, the reasons why it's important that they engage with these things when they've got, like you mentioned, that pipeline gap that's keeping them awake at night, or that biggest quarter ever, because it's always the biggest quarter ever, right? Coming up that they've got to close.
That's something that we notice all the time. Like best reps on the platform, the ones that use it the most, to a lot of people's surprise, are the top reps typically. And we've also seen bottom performers turn into top performers using something like Hyperbound. And the things I always say, Matt, we're not trying to prove that practice works. There's a lot of research that shows practice works. We're just facilitating that practice at scale. Right. There's a difference. And so that's why when a lot of people come to me, I've had CROs come to me and they're like, prove to me that Hyperbound's going to make, improve our conversion rates and make our reps better. I'm like, well, prove to me that practice is going to make your reps better. That's basically what you're asking me, right? Well, that's proven. But are you doing that practice today is the question you want to ask yourself. And why? Is it because it's taking up too much of your manager's time? Is it because your reps aren't willing to do so and you're struggling to build that culture of enablement? Or is it because you guys are just overperforming to the point where you don't feel like you need enablement? It's one of those usually.
And that last one's a really interesting one, Sai. You mentioned enablement. Again, it's an interesting time in the market for enablement teams. What does the future of the enablement role or profession look like? I think about this. I've kind of been in the space for like 12 plus years myself. I saw a massive sort of rise in popularity and investment in enablement roles during the growth at all costs era, call it 2020 through 2023. I then saw a kind of big turn against enablement roles and saw loads of talented enablement professionals losing jobs and being cut and difficult times. It feels like we've been in a bit of a transition the last 18 months with regards to the enablement role. I'm really curious, what do you guys see? Like, where is enablement headed? What does the enablement role look like in the future?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this, man. Enablement's definitely on a comeback right now. We're seeing every company start to reinvest in their enablement team because, there was that phase where, enablement was seen as this cost center and they were being downsized. And very quickly, companies are now course correcting because training is not optional. Right? It's necessary. And especially when you have an oil tanker, like some of the companies we work with, they have thousands of reps, Matt. One of our customers has, 3,000 reps. And every time they launch a new product or multiple products, there's no way to roll that out to 3,000 reps without an enablement team. And even that enablement team, you can't hire enough people to actually serve that many reps. And that's where the technology comes in and multiplies the power of the enablement team, right? But you still need humans that kind of lead the charge, whose focus is to make that as successful as possible. So when it comes to the future of enablement, I think where we're headed, Matt, is we're in the era of reinforcement now, right? Up till now, The status quo was we're launching a new product. Cool. Let's set up a meeting, a big Zoom meeting with all our managers, and let's teach them the new product and then hope that gets bubbled down to the reps, right? Or let's just throw an SKO, spend, $3 million, fly everyone in, run an SKO, do a 3-day certification with someone like Challenger or Force Management, and boom, hope the reps figure it out for the rest of the year. Oh, and if someone underperforms, let's just get rid of them and replace them with someone else. I think the future looks very different. We're going to be looking at reps specializing in certain areas, right? We're going to see a lot less turnover because reps actually have a one-on-one support with an AI, right? We're going to start to see reps will no longer be forgetting what they learned during that SKO within the first month of learning it, right? We're going to start seeing how AI is going to help them reinforce that. It's going to catch them. Let's say, AI, like I said, it can listen to all your calls, right? It will identify, hey, you screwed up on this thing. I remember when you learned this a couple weeks ago. Here's a role play. You can practice that if you want. And that practice just helps you ingrain that in your head. And so that's something that just hasn't been possible until AI came into the picture.
So what I'm hearing from you, Sai, is that enablement becomes much more tailored. It becomes much more centered around reinforcement. And then the role of the enablement teams themselves becomes much more about coordination rather than just
Absolutely.
one-to-many delivery, which I guess is the enablement era that we're coming out of.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of strategy that still has to go behind setting up these programs because the AI is only as good as the content you put into it. And someone still needs to create that content. And I see some companies claiming to do that piece as well, right? Content creation with AI. Well, guess who's feeding the models that are creating the content? It's still humans. So you still need people. I think people are too quick to think we're going to replace enablement. We're not trying to replace enablement. We're just trying to support them.
It does throw out some interesting questions, though, about how that skill set is going to evolve. Because what I'm hearing, it sounds like the role of the enablement professional is going to be much more about coordination, like I mentioned, but also measurement, metrics, reinforcement, proving impact.
Yep.
Perhaps a slightly different skill to someone who's more perhaps from an L&D background or
And
used
also
to being.
taking a more data-driven approach, right? You see a lot of enablers today, the only data point they have is participation rate, right? They'll do a program and the only thing they'll measure is how many reps actually did the training. And the reps that did the training, are they doing better in the field, right? And there's such a big gap, right, between those two outcomes. And so it's like, can we bridge that gap? Help you with having more proxy metrics, right? That can actually help you measure more carefully. Hey, what is this rep's journey from day 1 to day 100, right? And what are the different milestones that they need to achieve so that we can apply that to future reps that join the company, right? Learn from historical data for future reps. So that's the power of AI, is it can keep track of all of that and also give you that insight moving forward.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. I guess there's also one component of the skill set for the sellers, which is also the out of call capabilities, right? So when they're not actually in that sales conversation, are you guys thinking about like how does AI help with the stuff that goes on outside of the 4 to 5 sales meetings a day?
Yeah, I mean, what do you mean in what sense? Because there's a lot of things to work on there.
Yeah, so it could be managing time is obviously a common one that we hear pushback on. Our salespeople just aren't good enough at managing their own schedules and their cadences and capacity would be one. Willingness to do the role is another big one as well, right? Which perhaps you tell me what you guys are doing, but you could look at like sentiment on calls or tonality could perhaps be a reveal how they're feeling in the role.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't spent too much time on those pieces, right? Like, because there's two components to behavior change. There's actually like the skills, and then there's all this other stuff that you're talking about, which is like, hey, the attitude of the rep. Attitude's something that's definitely much more difficult to change. No AI role play is going to change a rep's attitude. But what we've found with our customers is when you give reps a space where they can safely get better, it actually encourages them to want to be better. Like they feel more supported, right? Because we've done surveys with, tons of reps at this point. I've done so many user interviews with our customers, and the number one thing reps will tell us is, man, I love this company because they care about me getting better. That makes me want to get better. And they'll tell me all these stories about how they've been other companies in the past where they were just treated like machines. They're just thrown in told to figure it out. And so it comes down to culture, right? It's all about like leadership and the culture that they set. And I think that impacts reps. And we jump to blaming the reps, but it all starts with leadership, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally. It comes back to that point we were talking about earlier of the importance of the human being in this future GTM team structure. It's an exciting vision of the future, man. It's super impressive what you guys are building and the progress you've made. And, I can really clearly see that kind of assistant vision that you spoke about there of, the salesperson having this quarterback really that's kind of guiding and supporting them throughout the sales process and their career. It gets even more exciting when we start thinking about different channels of delivery and whether it's going to be audio and avatar that you're constantly speaking with, or is that something that you guys are even thinking about? Are you going to have like an integration with meta glasses or different mediums in the future?
Oh yeah, that would be pretty amazing. I mean, we haven't dabbled with any of the VR or AR devices yet, but that is something I've actually thought about, getting to a point where, you can actually simulate a face-to-face conversation, with one of these tools. But right now, the main medium for Hyperbound is it's a voice AI, so it speaks to you back and forth. We do have avatars. Honestly, though, the avatars in general, I don't think the technology is quite as good as we'd like it to be, right? You can still tell that it's an AI. So we don't necessarily index on that piece too much yet, right? But we're always on the lookout. We want to really push that when it gets really good. But right now, the voice AI is the main medium that people uses.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. But I'm really impressed. And obviously, you guys have been working at this for, like you mentioned, 10 years, right? So goes to prove it yet again, there's no such thing as an overnight success. Obviously, people reading about Hyperbound, but you guys have been working in the space for 10 years, so it's really impressive.
Yeah. No, this stuff is bleeding edge tech, and there's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears put into this over the last 10 years. And I think it's still just the beginning, right? When we first started the company, when you would talk to this bot, this is when we presented to those CROs at that event. The bot would have a 15-second delay. So you say something and it would respond 15 seconds later. In a matter of 18 months now, it's now an 800 millisecond delay. So it feels like a real human conversation because of how fast it's able to respond back to you. So that shows like the progress already, right? Within 18 months, we see that much development. I can't even start to imagine what it's going to look like, a year from now or even 2 years from now. I think it's going to look completely different.
The exciting part, right, is that this is the worst it will ever be.
Yep. And if it's not real, your reps aren't going to use it, right? Isn't that the number one complaint right now too with roleplay is a lot of reps don't like role playing because they're like, it's not realistic, it's awkward, right? My peers don't have time, right? But with Hyperbound, if we can get it to be uber realistic, which it already is to a certain degree, and it's going to get better, there's no excuse. Got to do your role plays.
Yeah, I firsthand personally massively believe in that. Picking up on a point around the power of practice, like I think some of the most extreme examples of moments where I learned the most in my own sales career was doing public role plays at SKOs in front of like 50 to 100 other people and being stood on a stage with the VP of sales role playing and throwing you like the hardest objections. And
we do that. We actually did that at the Segment SKO. If you know Segment, the company, they had hundreds of their reps participate in this too. They actually had one of their top reps come onto stage, do a role play with the bot. And then they sent a link out to everyone in the audience and had them role play with it as well. So we do that all the time. At least the nice part with this is you can actually do it at scale. It's not just like having the top rep do it on the stage, but being able to have everyone else in the audience do it as well, right?
So we've got a closing tradition on the podcast, and you haven't had a chance to prepare for this, but I'm pretty sure I know what your answer is going to be. So the closing tradition is we ask every guest, are great salespeople made or are they born?
Oh, let me think about that. Yeah, man. I mean, I think you know my answer. I think that great salespeople are definitely made. I'm not saying that I'm a great salesperson, but I did make a bit of a career pivot. Once you're a founder, you really are just a salesperson. That's what you are. And I had to make a concerted effort to learn from scratch. And I'm proud of how far I've gotten on that journey. So for me, it's that belief of like, if my co-founder and I can get better and pivot our careers, become salespeople, then we believe anyone else can, because we never thought we were going to do this.
Love it. So thanks for coming on the show, man. This has been a lot of fun. We've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about use cases of AI in the enterprise. I think some amazing tips and insights in terms of how to think about setting those programs up for success. We unpack the future of enablement, as well as GTM and where we're headed. It's an exciting future, and yeah, I for one certainly looking forward to continuing to follow your guys' journey and the continued success, I'm sure.
Yeah, and for anyone else that's out there that wants to try one of these role play bots, we actually have 9 of them that are publicly available on our website. So if you go to hyperbound.ai, you can try them out. Just a little bit of a disclaimer, they are some of the rudest bots on the internet. So if you get hung up on by one of them, just warning you ahead of time, they can be pretty dicey.
So thanks so much for coming on the show and forward to doing it again, man.
Appreciate it.